Greetings, all you chamomile drinkers out there, and welcome to the Inner Four Lights, a watch of Star Trek Picard Season 3. My name is Fletcher, about to say hello is Data.
Yo!
We're also the hosts of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast, Undeclared Bajor, available on the Fletcher from the Deep YouTube channel and your favorite podcast platform, as long as your favorite platform is one of the ones I have gotten around to putting it up on. So if you like listening to us, and you like Star Trek Deep Space Nine, go check that out. You can also check out Data's Brandon Sanderson podcast, The Sanderlanche, linked in the description. Today we're going to recap, discuss, and theorize, and I got some juicy theories today.
Okay, good.
About Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 3/Part 3, 17 Seconds. Alternate title, Secret Invasion Federation.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
You got a better one?
Not really. No, I hadn't thought. I need to start thinking of that before we get into the episode.
You need, you need to be able to upstage me.
Yeah, exactly. It's very important.
This will be a full spoiler discussion. Apparently, not just for Picard, but for Deep Space Nine also.
Yep. If you don't know how Deep Space Nine ended, then you're in trouble now.
Stop watching Picard and go finish watching Deep Space Nine.
I mean, I don't know what we expected. It all takes place in the same universe, and this is 20 years later, so it would be weird if, they avoided that subject for some reason.
I mean, it would be weird, but Deep Space Nine has always seemed to have been kind of just, ignored or cut out of the universe by these shows.
I mean, it's true. We haven't had much Deep Space Nine crossover so far in the show, so
yeah,
that all changes. I mean, I guess you can count Worf because he was on Deep Space Nine.
Sure. This episode was written by Jane Maggs and Cindy Apple and directed by Jonathan Frakes.
Good for him.
Yay! Always love a good Frakes director job.
Yep, he's getting some work.
I don't know what Jonathan Frakes has been up to lately. I assume he's doing this and that.
I think he mostly directs TV. Hold on, I'm gonna hit his IMDb. Hold on, let's see.
Or he does.
Gotta be careful.
What's that website where you can make celebrities say whatever you want to say?
Oh, shoot,
Cameo.
Yeah, Cameo. Because I totally looked at that. It's expensive.
Because I think I've seen some cameos of him floating around.
Okay, so he directed some Star Trek Picard, some Star Trek Discovery, some episodes of Leverage. An episode of Leverage Redemption is the name of that show. A couple episodes of The Orville.
Okay.
Some other stuff that I've never heard of. Several episodes of The Librarians. Some NCIS Los Angeles. Some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Burn Notice. Yeah, he's just directing TV all over the place.
I guess just, whenever you need a director, call up good old Johnny Frakes.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to dive into this episode?
Sure, let's do that thing that you said.
We don't want to anger our listeners with unnecessary...
I was going to say, gotta be careful so that we don't talk about 8 minutes worth of art theft at the beginning of the episode.
Welcome to art theft. Man, you know what my favorite art heist is? No. I totally want to do a dedicated art heist podcast now. But...
Just add it to the list.
Anyway... Red alert sirens blare aboard the Titan as the ship dives into the clouds of the nebula.
Wait, are they in trouble of some sort? I don't remember.
Remember they ran into Captain Honey Bunny and
Yeah, okay, nebula, explosions, got it.
Do you need me to do a previously on?
Yeah, we need the whole previously on. No, just go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, they ran into the bad lady, and she shot them, and I honestly don't remember what happened either, but so Captain Shaw orders engines ready for warp, but Riker tells him they can't do that in the nebula. Also, they're losing sensors, which Riker again attributes to the nebula. In light of these problems, Riker and Shaw agree there is only one course of action: go deeper into the nebula.
We must go deeper.
On the Shrike, one of the Eyes Wide Shut-in crew informs Vadic that they have lost track of the Titan, but Vadic simply puffs her cigar unworriedly. Aboard the Titan, all give a sigh of relief as they seem to have finally shaken the Shrike. All except for Picard, who just says, "For now."
I mean, I think everyone knew that. You didn't have to call it out.
Come on, try to keep a positive attitude in the situation. Cut to before.
Sometime before.
Yep. A generic rock and roll riff plays over the future Los Angeles skyline. In the tin forward bar, Picard and Riker, looking exactly the same age despite obvious attempts at computer and hair dye enhanced de-aging.
It's not great de-aging. This just made me happy. I was like, they should have tried de-aging Guinan or something last season. No, no. If this is the quality that they could get, then they should not have done that. So they did well.
Just put some dark hair dye on Riker and give Picard a young looking shirt or something. I don't know.
A Hawaiian shirt to show that he's cool.
Picard's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. That was during his Hawaiian shirt phase. So that'll establish his age, and we don't have to look at this horrible computer stuff. But they make a toast with Swafford whiskey to Riker's firstborn son, Thaddeus. So 2 questions. Have we established if Swafford whiskey is a real thing?
I didn't even notice that was the... Hold on.
Because, why are they always drinking it?
Whiskey. Swafford on Memory Alpha is a brand of single malt whiskey produced in Scotland on Earth, containing 40% synthahol. So it appears in the episode 17 Seconds and the episode The Next Generation. Those are the 2 times it has existed, apparently.
So this is maybe this is an inside joke with the 12 Monkeys people.
According to Terry Metalis, Swafford whiskey is an homage to his oldest friend, and there's no further explanation of that.
Okay, so I'm going to take a quick diversion here, because you mentioned that. So I went to the Space History Museum in Alamogordo, New Mexico, which you know because I sent you some pictures.
Yep.
And it had it had kind of a full Star Trek exhibit. And one of the facts that I learned from that exhibit is that Khan Noonien Singh is named after an Air Force buddy of Gene Roddenberry's, whose name was Kim Noonien Singh. And he named the character that because he had lost touch with Kim Noonien Singh and was hoping that would get his attention and get him to call up Gene Roddenberry. But he never did, and Gene Roddenberry never heard from him.
Oh.
Yep, very sad. Also, have we ever heard of this firstborn son, Thaddeus, before?
Yeah, we heard about him in season... Oh, you didn't watch season 1, obviously.
Right.
So it is actually a very sad story where, they had this child, Thaddeus, and then Thaddeus had a little sister later whose name escapes me at the moment. And then Thaddeus came down with this horrible disease that could have been cured easily by with grafting some artificial neural pathways or something, except that because of the ban on synthetic intelligence, it was illegal to do that, so he died.
Okay.
He was known for making up universes and complete with languages or something like that. It was it was a weird thing where his whole family spoke some of these fictional languages and used to talk to each other.
Huh. Interesting. But Riker tells the story of the touch and go delivery and how the worry of a 17-second turbo lift ride, not knowing the fate of his child, suddenly made him a father emotionally. And then Riker says he wishes Picard will one day know the feeling, which, man, just how on the nose. But
yeah, what?
Then he gets a call from a very upset Troy who has been left all alone with the baby, and he has to leave. Which I think it would be funny if this is all we ever see of Troy all season.
Is her being angry about being left alone with the baby, and the baby threw up in engineering, which I was like, why is the baby in engineering?
Yeah.
Do they not have maternity leave in Starfleet? That seems pretty messed up.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe she was just showing the baby off in engineering. Parents like to do that stuff. Or maybe the walk from her counselor's office to their quarters goes through engineering or something. Back in the present day, the people looking out the back window, which I forgot to mention, they lost sensors, and so Captain Shaw ordered people to go look out the back window.
Yep.
Which becomes a thing this whole episode. But they're looking out the back window, they see no sign of the Shrike. The lights flicker on the bridge, and the science officer, or I assume she's the science officer, reports electrical and biological energy surges from the nebula, which everyone just shrugs off. Like, Captain Shaw is just like, oh, that's weird. But what is this nebula? Is this like, are they in a, remember in Empire Strikes Back?
Oh, where they go in the thing and it's like a worm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I assume that it's something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, they spend the whole episode with the science officer being like, something is weird in here, and like, I really don't think we should go deeper. But she doesn't know, what it is, or she's like, I think if we go deeper, it will be bad, but we really have no idea what this is. And then the episode ends with Riker being like, you've killed us because we're going deeper in the nebula now and we can't stop it. And I'm like,
yeah,
but you really don't know. Like,
well,
I feel like you're jumping to a lot of conclusions here.
True. Also, he was the one who blatantly went deeper into the nebula, I think multiple times, against advice. We'll get to all that.
I was looking up Thaddeus. Apparently his middle name is Worf.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Oh, did you notice when he's talking to Troy and she's all angry about him like drinking whiskey and smoking cigars? She's like, bring the whiskey, and then he does not bring the whiskey. He leaves it there.
Oh, he doesn't? Oh, yeah. Come on, Riker. But so confined to her quarters, 7 of 9 listens to Mozart while jabbing a doodad with a screwdriver. Yeah,
so apparently now her being no longer first officer is important, whereas it was not last episode.
I guess Captain Shaw saw her wandering around and was like, wait a second. No. Get back to your quarters.
I mean, she shows up in his office to convince him to go after Picard and Riker, and he's like, do I need to confine you to quarters? And so I guess he subsequently does.
But so 7 is visited by Crash LaForge, who expresses admiration for the way she placed friendship over obeying orders.
Yeah, we get a thing where she's like, my dad wasn't good at making friends, and neither am I. Like, that's the only thing that we have in common. And I was like, yeah, Geordi, okay, he wasn't the most socially capable dude.
Oh, Geordi made friends okay. It was just he wasn't so good with the ladies.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I don't know. Did he have lots of friends? He and Data were friends, and
he made friends with Hugh that one time.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah, maybe he doesn't have a ton of friends. I don't know.
It's hard to get a bunch of friends when you're the chief engineer. Like, true. You're everybody's boss except for the other senior officers. I guess he's kind of friends with them.
Did he hang out? Did you hang out in that poker game?
He was sometimes at the poker game.
Yeah. So I think with as far as friends go, he was okay. In sickbay, Crusher is helping out with the injured, or that's Beverly Crusher. Yep. Or I guess Beverly and
they were both in there, yeah.
Much to the annoyance of the ship's doctor, Dr. Oak, who seems to be a Trill person.
It's just like, it would take me longer to explain to you everything that's changed in the last 20 years than to just do it myself. I assume that you've done absolutely no medical work in the last 20 years since you got out of Starfleet.
I assume your medical degree is totally useless now.
Yep. And then she just leaves. Yeah. Because they're like, hey, doctor, come to engineering. And so I'm like, so what did you're like, I don't want you helping, but I'm not going to be here to help.
Right. And then Crusher just goes back to doing exactly what she was doing.
Yep.
Picard and Riker shows up to sickbay where Crusher is. And Riker drags Jack away so Crusher and Picard can do some catching up and dump a bunch of important information on us.
Well, also, apparently, in the middle of this emergency where lots of people have been injured, they can just keep sickbay to themselves for this discussion.
Right.
I don't...
There's a convenient lull in sickbay visitors during this conversation. Yep. Or maybe Riker's just outside being like, don't go in there.
Just keep your bleeding selves out of there.
Let it bleed. Okay, so Crusher answers pretty much all our questions. She got pregnant with Jack during a shore leave from the Enterprise 2 months before she ran off. So that would make Jack approximately 19 or 20 years old.
A shore leave that apparently took place on Casperia Prime, which was where Dax and Worf were going to go on their honeymoon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Also, okay, I gotta say, this bothers me.
Okay.
Because today, in the real world, if one or both people in a sexual relationship are at all cautious, it is very easy to
Yeah.
avoid like unintended pregnancy. I find it very hard to believe that like in the 2300s they don't have ways that like both people can with very little effort avoid getting pregnant unexpectedly. So that really makes them seem either ridiculously irresponsible or like they were like, you know what, maybe we'll get knocked up. Why not?
Yeah. And apparently they were like in a like downward phase of their relationship and they knew they were about to break up.
Well, according to Crusher, Picard's like, I didn't know.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I was thinking, because you got to think in this day and age, they probably have like, male birth control, female birth control.
Yep.
I mean, you probably they probably can just like put a button on your whatever that you can press if like okay, make babies happen now.
Yeah, I assume that it's very easy. There's probably like a one-time injection or hypospray that you get that's like, okay, this goes in, you can't have babies until like you come and get the other one that's like, hey, I want to have babies now.
Yeah, something really simple, like some sperm blocking nanites or something. You know?
Something.
Yeah, and Crusher especially, you'd think would know.
Yes, as the chief medical officer, I feel like and the captain, I feel like this is really irresponsible on both of their parts.
Maybe they forgot which shot they got last, or I don't know. Maybe like it's one of those situations where it's like Picard got a test, like a sperm motility test or something, and it looked like he couldn't have kids, but then he could or something. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, we continue answering these questions. She decided not to tell Picard because she believed that he would always be in these dangerous situations and he would be unwilling to give it up for the sake of family. And also, the son of Jean-Luc Picard would always have a target on his back, like Mary Jane Watson or something.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, probably not completely wrong, but on the other hand, it's like Picard, when he retired, he went and lived on his vineyard for like decades or something, and nobody cared. It was like, okay, yeah, you go do you. Like, you could have gone and lived on Earth, which is a very safe place, and I feel like she's overstating what the danger was.
Yeah, I think maybe she was just mad about something, or I don't know.
It's hard, as we're both guys, to maybe see her perspective as well, but I'm just like, I'm definitely on Picard's side, where it's like, how are you not going to give somebody the chance to make that decision for themselves? That's fucked up.
Yeah, but I guess we'll roll with it for the sake of the plot. So Crusher doesn't know who's chasing them. She just said trust no one because they were attacked by a bunch of different people, like we theorized last time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Fenris Rangers, Klingons, people in Starfleet uniforms, and she couldn't think of anyone to trust but Picard.
Burn Riker.
Yep. She theorizes that somehow Picard himself is their real target, as only Picard could have that powerful of an enemy. Which I think she said, like, this is a Picard level enemy or something like that.
Well, so on the one hand, maybe she's got a point that she's like, we've been into like small potato stuff since leaving Starfleet or whatever. But you've probably got some enemies. Also, she doesn't. It's like the captain of the Shrike does not seem to care about Picard. She's very specific about who she wants. So I don't necessarily see it the same way.
I have a big theory about all of this.
Okay,
but I'll talk about it later. She explains that Jack has an accent because he went to school in London, and possibly the accent is just genetic. Who knows?
Yeah, apparently. She's like, yeah, he couldn't shake it after going to school in London. And I was like, oh man, so Picard was living in France. Do we know where in France Picard lived? And like his son's in London and no one ever tells him.
Man.
Where is Picard Vineyard? I want to know now. In Bordeaux. So it is close to the coast in the southwestern part of France, almost down to Spain.
Okay. So, like, not right next to London?
Yeah, it's not like Paris and London, but it's pretty close, given, like, Star Trek distances.
Right, and, I mean, apparently you can just, like, beam over to L.A. or whatever whenever you want. So.
Exactly.
And she tried to encourage, when, I guess he came of age or whatever, she tried to encourage him to look Picard up, but he just didn't want to.
Yep.
So that's all that stuff out of the way. Meanwhile, in the hallway, Riker and Jack have a chat. Jack notices that the crew seem to blame him for their predicament. And then Riker advises Jack that he needs to give them a reason to feel good about saving him.
I feel like that these Starfleet people are being a little unfair, where it's like, we should have handed a guy over to die so that we would be out of trouble. That does not seem very Starfleet-y to me.
Yeah, like at the beginning, there's that like one officer with like, he's just, I don't know, he's got a broken leg or something. He's like, this is all your fault. It's like, come on, man. Afterwards, Riker encourages Picard to have a talk with Jack. Picard says it's too late, but he does decide that this is a good time to go find Shaw and apologize for, the whole thing.
Yeah, probably a good call.
We cut to the people looking out the back window who see the Shrike come out of the nebula clouds, even though we cut to an exterior shot where the Shrike is in front of the Titan. And also, the person says they see it 3,000 meters away, which, that's good eyes. Aboard the Shrike, an Eyes Wide Shut-Ian announces that they found the Titan right where it should be. So
yeah, that's the way that's phrased is very interesting.
The Shrike opens fire, and classic Star Trek battle chaos ensues. We got sparks, we got smoke, we got girders that we never saw before falling off the ceiling.
Yep.
Shaw is knocked down and transfers command to Riker before being dragged off to sickbay.
Like, this is your fault. You're gonna fix it.
Yep.
Not Picard to be in command, but Riker.
Well, this is theoretically Riker's old ship, even though we've established it's pretty much a completely different ship, so...
Yeah.
I don't know. Riker and Picard hit the Shrike with the old shoot the torpedo with a phaser trick. And then this is where Picard says, I think you should start to call me number one.
Which I don't think he does.
Yeah, he never does the whole episode. Well, that's a cute little line, I guess. Meanwhile, on that same Metallus Prime rooftop we're always at, Raffi is awoken from her splinter drug hangover by the distant sounds of opera. So, okay, first of all, we didn't talk about this last time, but remember the Ferengi guy gave her the splinter drug?
Yep.
And he described it as being torn apart and put back together over and over and over again. Is this supposed to be an enjoyable drug?
Right? That doesn't sound like fun, but I assume that it's something that you enjoy.
Sure, okay. Why would you even make it?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, here's a drug that we're going to market to people that they are going to hate. No one's going to want to use this 2 times.
So I said my compound would take you places. I never said it would be places you wanted to go.
Yeah, see, it's not good. It's not good for business.
Yep. She stumbles into the main room of the ship where she finds a mysterious figure swinging his sword around to a familiar selection from Hector Berlioz's Les Troyens.
Yep.
Yes, a little Easter egg for Star Trek fans, I guess.
And I felt like it should have been Klingon opera, but maybe Worf has branched out.
True. He's working on himself. He's drinking chamomile tea.
Yep.
She holds the man at gunpoint and demands to know who he is. But he quickly disarms her and introduces himself as Worf, with many, many titles.
Hey, there's some good stuff in there.
He's Slayer of Gowron, Bane of the Durasses.
Which is fair. He killed Duras, and then he fired the torpedo, I think, that blew up the Duras sisters. So
did he? I thought Riker fired that torpedo.
Okay, hold on.
Because I just remember, because Data figured out the whole thing about they could trick the ship into cloaking.
Right.
And then, Worf did come up with the fact that bird of prey had the defect.
Right.
That you could exploit to make it cloak. So maybe that counts.
Okay, let's see. I got a clip.
Okay.
Bird of prey shooting at the Enterprise.
And then famously also they reused the explosion from Star Trek 6.
Yep.
When that bird of prey...
They're always reusing explosions in Star Trek. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so yeah, Worf's like, there's a problem with the cloaking device, and Data's like, hey, if we do a thing, it might make them cloak.
Right.
And, Riker tells Worf to target their primary reactor.
Okay. Well, Riker says fire, and I guess Worf fires the torpedo.
Yeah, Riker is very dramatic, fire, and Worf fires So yeah.
Okay. So we'll totally give Worf at least an assist on that one.
And he's accepted his human parents also, because he throws
that was nice.
that out there. So that's it's nice that Worf is more comfortable with himself and his own history now.
Right. So after thinking through the events of the previous episode, so we got a nice unnecessary flashback to Sneed or whatever that guy was getting his head cut off.
Yep.
Raffi finally puts it together that Worf is her handler. Worf says to think of himself as a kind of subcontractor for Starfleet intelligence. And he says that he shares Raffi's fears that a bigger attack is coming. At first he tries to brush her off, but it's kind of a weak effort, as he immediately reveals that he's discovered who told Sneed to lie, a human named Titus Ricca, which that's got to be an anagram or something. Or another friend of Terry Metalis. Or
yeah, maybe.
And it's like 5 seconds after he was like, you don't want to be involved in this. He's like, you know what? Come help me, like, track this Titus Ricca guy down and interrogate him. And then Raffi says, cool. Like, she's in Pulp Fiction or something.
Yeah, nothing on the wiki about, like, if the name has a source.
I'm sure there's something about it that Terry Metalis is, like, giggling about. Back on the Titan, Picard and Riker argue about whether they should turn to fight Vadic or keep trying to evade. An argument they have like 86 times in this episode.
Yep.
Riker is in charge, so they keep running.
Take the same stances. It's like,
yep.
I want to fight. Well, I don't want to fight.
So I think we should fight. I think we should run away. In sickbay, Shaw is clearly in distress, which Crusher correctly diagnoses as internal bleeding in a medical knowledge dunk on the ship's doctor.
Yeah, it's like, oh, what was that? All that shit you were talking earlier? Well, you're like, well, my scanner didn't see the internal bleeding. Well, guess what? The scanner doesn't always see internal bleeding from like this particular kind of injury. So screw you.
Yep. Come on, Trill Doctor. What are you doing? Shaw wonders how the Shrike keeps finding them, which leads Jack to stare at the blood all over the floor and ponder. On the bridge, they suffer another power surge, and the science officer says that this nebula must actually be some never-before-documented space phenomenon right on the edge of Federation space that nobody noticed before.
Yep.
And backs Picard's line that they should turn and fight rather than go deeper, as that would be logical, as they don't know what the heck this thing is. So Riker decides, well, we'll just fly out of the nebula ASAP and be ready to warp away as soon as we're clear of it. Jack tries to get onto the bridge and share his epiphany, whatever it was, but is turned back by a security officer. I have important tactical information that could be vital to this fight, says Jack, and the security officer, being a rational Starfleet officer, gives him an appropriate way to contact the bridge. No, that doesn't happen. Jack just pouts and storms off.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to know what, like, he doesn't know Starfleet protocol, so he's like, hey, I got important information I want to tell them on the bridge. And the guy's like, nope, you're not allowed. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just going to give up now.
Yep. I mean, I probably would have been like, okay, but is there some way I can communicate this important information to them?
Right.
But honestly, he should have just stayed in sickbay and been like, hey, one of you people who works for Starfleet and has a comm badge, call the captain and tell them this thing.
Yep. Just as the Titan is about to be free of the nebula, the Shrike rushes up behind them and fires a portal right in front of them, which turns them back into the nebula. And I like at this point they're full on calling it the portal gun. Like,
yeah, I mean, what else are you going to call it, honestly? But this is such a precise weapon. I'm wondering if it can, portal over larger distances than like 5 feet away from each other. But it fires so fast and
right, and it can like outrun a torpedo apparently.
Yeah, and I keep being like, well, wait, you see that can't you just turn away from the portal as you see it like getting shot in front of you? But I guess not.
I guess not. I guess they just have too much momentum or something. What really bothers me about it, though, is that sometimes it works exactly like the portal, but sometimes like the ship or something flies into it and disappears and then waits a second and then flies out the other portal.
Well, that's what happened with the recruitment center, was that it's like it falls into that portal and then like a minute later the other portal opens and it falls out again. So I don't know where it was in between those two,
but like in this particular scene, like it's exactly like a portal where like you can see it going through and then coming out like at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
And so I guess we talked about it. We talked about before, like you were like, it doesn't make sense that they would have, pulled that heist and then they'd be out here doing this. But apparently that's because after the heist was pulled, the portal gun was not the ultimate goal. So I guess maybe those guys just sold it to someone, or I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah. We're gonna have, later on. We're gonna have like a definite sanity check of what's going on. Because, I mean, maybe whoever stole the portal gun used it in their fake terror attack, and then gave it to Amanda Plummer. It's like, hey, we don't need this anymore. Do you want it? And she's like, oh yeah, my gun or my ship with every single kind of gun on it. I totally want one of those.
Yeah, I need one of those new kind of guns.
So Riker tries to leave the nebula again, just to get portaled back in again. Picard again urges Riker to fight, but Riker just orders them back into the nebula. The Titan dives into the nebula with a Shrike in hot pursuit, bombarding them with torpedoes. Jack shows up at Seven's quarters and asks her if there's any way they might be tracking them without sensors, like blood in the water. Seven immediately jumps to Verterium. Jack punches out the security guard, and they're on their way to investigate. And, like, he's got a future in, like, boxing.
Yeah, right?
Because that guy's just
one punch crusher, as they call him.
Luckily, Seven immediately smells Verterium in the hallway, and they trace the leak to a pipe that seems to have been sabotaged.
But also, Verterium is super deadly, and don't inhale it.
Right.
It's like those old vet blender videos. Like, don't breathe this.
Yeah. She calls it into the bridge, but they're having their own problems. The science officer reports that they're headed for a gravitational well in the middle of the nebula. If we get pulled into it, she says. You heard her, LaForge, says Riker. Not really, thinks LaForge. She didn't...
If she didn't finish that sentence.
Yeah. Picard suggests using the Verterium leak to their advantage, making a fake trail for the Shrike to follow. Then we run away, says Riker. No, we sneak up behind them and blow them up, says Picard. Riker says, that makes sense, but I still say we just run away.
Both good options.
Sure. Jack gets to work fixing the leak, but he is attacked by a Starfleet officer who seems to have superhuman strength. Jack punches the attacker in the face, but the man's face gooifies and reconstitutes. So at this point, I'm like, wait, are we doing what I think we're doing?
Honestly, I wasn't even thinking it at that point. I was like, oh, does he have some sort of like weird mask that's not really his face or whatever?
Mm-hmm. I just realized, does this play into Jack's previous episode observation that the people who were attacking them, their faces kept changing?
I assume he didn't mean it that literally, but yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, but after he encounters this here, he's pretty confident when he talks to someone later that it's like a changeling. So
right.
I guess he would have known if he literally saw their face change.
True. Okay. Just a stray thought. So this weird goo face man knocks Jack down and leaves him to suffocate in the room flooding with Verterium. While on the floor, Jack has a weird vision of Seven with red vines behind her. Like, not red vines of the candy, but like...
Also red vines of the candy.
And Twizzlers were there too.
Yeah.
Telling him to connect the branches. And then we get some weird shots like a door opening and... I don't know. Luckily, she really is there and drags him off to sickbay, calling it into the bridge. Picard rushes to the turbo lift where, according to the rules of this episode, he presumably immediately forms a fatherhood bond with Jack.
Yep.
So, yeah, there's the title of the episode. I mean, whatever. Luckily, Jack is okay. Luckily, Jack is okay after Crusher defibrillates him like 20 times, and we get lots of drama of Picard thinking he's going to die. Back in the seedy club zone, Worf and Raffi are on a stakeout, insulting each other's fashion choices. It almost missed Titus Ricca walking by.
Yep. Luckily,
Worf is able to catch up with him and body slam him into a table.
He choke slams him. It's really great.
Yep.
Some good Worfing.
It's much better than his earlier, like, sword Tai Chi, which was clearly just Michael Dorn swinging his sword around. Like, they didn't bring in, like, a sword expert to choreograph that. It's like, let's just, ramp the speed up and down. It'll be fine. They take Titus Ricca to Raffi's ship to interrogate him. He seems to be going through eyeball drug withdrawals, so they offer to give him some drugs if he talks. Also, Raffi has the great line where it's like, this is a Klingon warrior who will happily shove his sword up here, and he's like,
I don't do that anymore.
I don't do that anymore.
Worf's got jokes this episode though.
Yeah. He's got the human humor figured out, I think.
Beheadings are on Wednesdays.
This is casual wear. Although I think he really did think that was casual wear.
Yeah, no, I think that he was totally serious. He's like, "What? No, this is like my Klingon casual. This is what we wear to eat brunch or whatever."
I'm going to get some mimosas later.
So I had to look up because I was like, I feel like we've seen the changeling guy before
in Star Trek.
No, but on the ship before.
The one that's on the Titan.
Yeah.
No, he was totally there when Picard did his inspection thing. Yeah.
Apparently, he was also working in the transporter room when like Jack shows up and like points a phaser at him.
Okay.
And he was also on duty with the ensign who's on the lookout for the Shrike when she's having trouble like saying stuff, and he's like,
Yeah, I did notice that, and then when I was skimming through the episode, I saw that like in the second scene when the Shrike has mysteriously found them, he's not there.
He's not there anymore. I noticed that at the time. I was like, I guess that guy is like off of watching the window duty or whatever.
Yeah. The back window that somehow also sees the front of the ship.
Of course, I guess we don't know that he was always the Changeling. The Changeling could have just like taken his appearance.
That's a major question I have about this whole situation.
But other Changeling guy, Jack or Titus Ricca or whatever.
Titus Ricca.
He's what's his name? He's John Connor from the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, okay.
He has been in Star Trek before, in Star Trek Generations as one of like the Picard children inside the what you call it?
The Nexus.
The Nexus. Yes.
Oh, it is the Nexus? Okay.
It's the Nexus.
Okay, so maybe interesting. Maybe that's a clue to a Picard connection or something. I don't know. So also during this interrogation, we get a weird, like, morally gray speech from Worf where he's like, there is no good or evil. There is only the fight or whatever.
He's like, you think your fight is worth blah, blah, blah. And like he's trying to convince the guy to just to give up, whatever he's got. Of course, he doesn't know at this point that it's not going to be effective.
Well, maybe. So eventually Titus admits to breaking into Daystrom, and he claims that the portal weapon was always just a diversion. So thank you for that helpful piece of information.
Yep.
Worf and Raffi both deduce that something even more dangerous must have been stolen from the Daystrom station. Suddenly, Titus's face starts gooifying, and Worf immediately puts it together what's going on. Tell me, he says, how long have you been away from the Great Link?
Bum, bum, bum.
Bum, bum. The jig being up, the Titus thing launches into a stock, it's too late, the worlds of the solids will crumble monologue. Then melts into changeling goo. It starts goo crawling away, but Worf vaporizes it with his phaser, which I was happy because this is like a real Star Trek phaser that like shoots a real Star Trek phaser beam and makes a Star Trek phaser noise.
Also, Worf executes that changeling with absolutely no hesitation. Like,
I know.
Okay, you had your shot.
Let's keep that guy. Like, just get a bucket. Like, that guy probably has way more useful information.
Yeah, absolutely. And but no, it's just. And so there was one of the things I saw on Reddit is people are very divided on the changeling goo form here because back in Deep Space Nine. Yeah, back in Deep Space Nine, it was just like, glowy golden stuff, and honestly, it doesn't look all that great. It looked good for the time, but so now we've got this kind of more realistic version of like goo. It's like it's like a meat sludge or something.
Yeah, it looks like,
and a lot of people are not real thrilled about it.
I don't mind. Like, I felt like it was just the right balance between like, the old effect, which was, it was just like a shimmery, semi-liquid looking effect.
Yeah.
And this, which is, I think it's fine. So Worf explains that a friend in the Great Link, I wonder who that is. And first of all, I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to see Odo? But then I remembered, I was like, oh.
Yeah, there was some talk about, like, apparently his son kind of looks like him, so they're like, maybe they
Huh.
can get him in here to be like a younger version, or like a younger looking one, because Odo can look like whatever he wants, right? So, but I
Well,
kind of doubt
okay.
it.
I have a theory. I have a theory that at some point we will meet a character who turns out to be Odo in like a new form.
You
But,
know what? This guy, I just looked him up. He actually kind of does look a bit like his dad. Here, I'll give you the link here in the chat. Like, I could totally see them selling this. His name is Remy Auberjonois.
Oh wow, that's okay. Yeah, huh? I swear I've seen that guy and stuff too.
Possibly. Let's see. Yeah, he has an IMDb, so it would make sense. Let's
Remy Luke.
take a look at what he's
Auberjonois.
done. Master Servant, Half the Perfect. I've never heard of any of these things. Blind Spot, The
He was in
Mysteries of
Weeds.
Laura, The Good Wife.
Hmm.
One episode of Blue Bloods. That's, I think, one of the only things on here that I've actually heard of. Oh, one episode of Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, yeah. He was in 2 episodes of The Americans.
Oh yeah, Weeds. You said that. Okay, I never actually watched except for the first episode of Weeds, but
Veep. I've seen some episodes of Veep. Okay, so he's just another one of those guys.
Hmm.
I never would have like thought about it, but now that you mention it, he totally does look like his dad. So yeah, this mysterious friend warned him of a renegade faction of changelings planning some kind of attack, but Starfleet doesn't want to acknowledge them because it might start a new Dominion war. So okay, I think we gotta think about what's been going on here. So I guess first, Worf was warned about this splinter faction of changelings.
so Odo's like, hey, by the way, there's some changelings who were not happy about losing the war, and
Right.
they want to start some shit.
Yeah, they've decided they didn't like losing the war 20 years ago. So Worf later, I guess, hears about the heist at the Daystrom station, and it maybe puts 2 and 2 together on that.
I don't know. I kind of in my brain had assumed that like he was working as, a freelancer with Starfleet intelligence for this specific problem, and then it was like, this seems like the kind of thing that might be related to that,
Okay,
so let's
okay.
look into it.
Okay, that also works.
Because we don't know exactly like what went down during this heist. There might be like some stuff that was like, oh, this seems like it was like a changeling thing.
True. But so he's working the changeling problem. He thinks, okay, maybe this heist is related to that. He recruits Rafi somehow.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
he's
not
like-
sure how, if he's like a freelancer working with Starfleet intelligence, I'm not sure how he's like, yeah, break me off like an officer that I can then
Right.
run as my asset in an undercover operation.
I assume that must be what happened, but he was like, hey, Dr. Bashir, can you spare some? I don't know. And then
Oh, I don't even know if we mentioned in the last one that Sneed was like knows all about Section 31 apparently, because that brings in all sorts of like, wait, what?
well, I mean, those things are just never kept secret. Like, wasn't it like it took the British government like decades to acknowledge that MI6 existed
No, I think that's
until
right,
it just
yeah.
became too ridiculous to try to pretend it didn't exist anymore? Like Area 51.
Yeah.
So the main seeming thing that was stolen from the Institute was the portal weapon.
Yes, that's what they seem to, and that's what gets used in a very public fashion. Right. So
they possibly stole something that seemed less important at the time,
or that no one has noticed is missing.
Right. And I have a theory on that we'll get to later.
Okay.
They attacked the Rachel Garrett statue as a diversion. At this point, a changeling tells Sneed to lie and say that guy, Osama bin Romulan, or whatever, was behind it. Or maybe they were just like, set us up a scapegoat.
Yeah.
He called in that Romulan guy, cut his head off, and then sent in a tip to Starfleet intelligence that he was behind it or something. Starfleet intelligence knew that was a lie, but rolled with it anyway.
Maybe they don't want the changelings knowing they're onto them.
Right. And like Worf said, maybe they just don't want to stir up a new war right now.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I get being like, we don't want a new war with the Dominion or whatever, but there was a reason why during the actual Dominion War, there was such a thing about like anti-changeling security measures, because
Right.
they can get anywhere and do anything. And so by ignoring this, you are not setting up any of the anti-changeling security that, I don't know how effective it ever was, but it's got to be better than nothing.
Yeah, they at least need to like call their like ship captains and stuff and be like, hey, you guys need to be doing like regular stab tests of your crews.
Or like phaser sweeps or whatever else.
Yeah. And so then Rafi followed this tip to Sneed. Worf comes in and rescues her, and then I guess Worf finds some evidence in Sneed's house that points to this Titus Ricca guy. And that's how they get onto him.
Okay. Well, or Worf could have already known about him, because all we know is that Worf was telling Rafi, don't keep pursuing this. And she did it anyway. So he could have had a lot more information.
Like, he was already on the trail of Titus Ricca.
Yeah, maybe.
And then she went off, and he was like, ugh, and he had to, like, go rescue her. Which, that was a great thing. She's like, you blew my cover. He was like, you had already accomplished that.
Yeah, it's like, you were already about to get killed because they knew that you were lying. Yeah. So...
Yeah, come on. So anyway, back to the show. Worf offers Rafi the handshake of partnership. And the two presumably finally leave Metalis Prime to go investigate the Daystrom Station heist, unless that also turns out to be on Metalis Prime.
Yeah, Daystrom Station is here.
Which wouldn't surprise me.
Everything happens here, apparently. We can only use the one planet this year for some reason.
We only have enough budget for one new planet. Back on the Titan, Picard once again begs Riker to turn and fight, and again Riker orders to run away. Unfortunately, the changeling on board blows up a power conduit, and they lose warp power. Finally, Riker agrees to attack the Shrike, and he just orders to fire everything, but the Shrike just uses the portal gun to shoot the torpedoes right back at the Titan, which, honestly, he should have anticipated that. But
well, the Shrike is somehow they think they're going to come up behind the Shrike. Well, the Shrike is looking for them, but no, the Shrike has already turned around and knows right where they are still, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
And then
at this point, I guess they don't know that the changeling is on board, and possibly just like passing intelligence to the Shrike.
I think this is also one of those times where the portal seems slightly delayed, where it's like it opens and sucks up the torpedoes, and then like the ship turns and runs away, and then the portal opens back up and shoots the torpedoes back out. Yeah,
just long enough to make a dramatic delay that Riker can be like, "Oh no," or Picard can be like, "Oh no." They get pounded by their own torpedoes. Totally disabled, the Titan begins falling into the nebula's gravity well. Riker orders Picard off the bridge, saying, "You've just killed us all." The ship falls into the gravity well, and they all die. The end.
It doesn't seem like a really Riker moment to me.
No.
Maybe Jonathan Frakes, as director, wanted to, let himself be super dramatic in this moment, but I was just like, this doesn't feel like the kind of thing he would do.
This whole argument about should we fight or should we run seems really not in character for these guys, like, because they just keep hammering the same point over and over again. They're like, "Oh, we gotta run away, or we gotta stand and fight and blow them up." It's like, no, let's run away. I want to save the lives of the ship.
Yeah, the only thing that I can, because it's really not in character for Starfleet officers at all to be like, I've made my suggestion to the person who is in charge, and they're not going to listen to it. They've made a decision, and I'm just going to keep fighting about it. Like, that's not something you see a lot, and the only thing I can think is that, like, at this point, they're both used to being the guy in charge who gets to make that decision.
Yeah.
So neither of them is willing to budge much on that, but I don't know.
Yeah. But I think we can all safely assume that they are not going to die in that gravity well.
No, yeah. I assume that there's going to be, a friendly being down there who's like, "Hey, let me help you out."
Yeah. That's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, what is in that gravity well? Like, what can we mine from, like, Star Trek Next Generation that can be in there to, like, save them?
Yeah, my immediate thought, if he hadn't died last season, would have been Q. Is just, like, hanging out.
Yeah.
But who knows? There could be a million things down there.
Yeah, so... Okay, so theory time.
Yep.
Okay, so here's my big major theory. I'll tell it to you right up front. So these guys are chasing Jack. Beverly suspects that has something to do with Picard. Meanwhile, something seemingly harmless or not noticeable has been stolen from Daystrom.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've several times this season, we've been reminded that Picard is a robot.
Yeah, even Jack, like, is like in this episode, is like, I thought he was positronic now or whatever. And I'm just like, why do you guys got to keep calling this out? Like, it actually just seems kind of mean at this point.
So my theory is that the warehoused cybernetic components of Locutus were stolen from Daystrom. And that they need Jack because he is still a living being who still possesses Picard's DNA. They can't get Picard because Picard is now a robot.
Okay.
And they need some Picard DNA to create a clone of Locutus and somehow use that to take over the entire Borg, which they will presumably use to attack the Federation.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's the entire theory.
Okay. It's hard to say no because we have so little information at this point.
True.
The only thing that I have to go on is, well, two things. So, A, we did the special episode because that episode was supposedly related to the season somehow, right?
Yeah.
And B, we know that Brent Spiner is coming back because
Sure.
he's on the posters and stuff. So I'm thinking that whatever was stolen from Daystrom, maybe like lore pieces were there. Or maybe like
or the green cube.
The green cube is there. And actually, if you haven't seen Lower Decks, but there's 2 different episodes of Lower Decks where they establish that at the Daystrom Institute there is like a room that's like the self-aware megalomaniacal computer storage area where all of these like computers that like want to take over the universe or whatever are stored. And so I'm like, maybe Lore and Moriarty are like in there somewhere, and they.
Okay.
And really, if it for example, the green cube, it would be super easy to take the green cube and replace it with another lookalike green cube, and no one would know that you had stolen this thing.
Right. Okay. So you think maybe the changelings are trying to put together like a Legion of Doom?
Maybe. With
like Lore and Moriarty? Or
Okay. Yeah, or that was my idea, and then I saw a theory on Reddit that like kind of expanded. Someone who had a similar idea where they're like, I think that like they're putting Lore back together to for some plan to take over stuff, and Moriarty was created to be someone who could beat Data, and so maybe that's the only thing they could come up with to beat Lore is the guy who could also beat Data, and then they recruit Moriarty to help like defeat him.
Okay.
Which I think
I like that theory too.
Yeah, I mean it's ridiculous, but I really like it.
Yeah,
in its ridiculousness.
It's like, who can defeat Lore? Well, I know somebody who can defeat Data.
Although he never did defeat Data, but
right,
he has the potential, supposedly.
Right, he's the best we got.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my thought, and then another thought that I found to add to it online. So that's
I'm gonna keep with my my Locutus theory, or it's not necessarily even mutually exclusive, but I just wanted to get it on record. I'm sure someone on Reddit has like already come up with that theory, but so other stuff. Okay, so I think this episode makes it pretty clear that Werq is working for the changelings, or that
I don't know. Okay, I get that as a conclusion. But at the same time, it might just be somebody that they like gave this weapon to distract from whatever they're doing. They're like, hey, go out and do some damage and we'll give you this thingy as long as you use it loudly.
And then maybe the whole Jack Crusher bounty is a red herring even.
Well, see, that's the part that I don't know about. I'm like, I don't understand why she would be so determined to get Jack Crusher. I mean, short of your Locutus theory that they need Jack Crusher for that reason, I'm just like, why? Why would you need... Why would... If she's a changeling, why are you so determined to get Jack Crusher that you've been hunting him down for weeks or months or however long in all these different guises? And really, if you're honestly changelings, you've done a really shitty job. You should be able to get him, a single guy, more easily than that using your changeling powers. But... And if she is a changeling or working for them, who are the guys the freaky alien guys that are working for her on her ship? I don't know.
I mean, I assume she is just a human and, a bounty hunter, like Seven said last episode. And I assume those guys are just like her crew that she picked up at some point.
So if that's the case, she's a bounty hunter.
Uh-huh.
What, maybe Jack Crusher has a bounty, maybe he doesn't.
Right.
So they got a changeling onto the Titan, and that changeling seems, his whole job seems to be so far to help her get them, which that doesn't seem like the kind of the founders were always very self-important, and I don't see one of the founders being like, okay, yeah, I'll go do this work on there to let you shoot at us. And like it seems like a weird position for the changeling to be putting himself in, to like arrange so a subordinate can capture Jack Crusher.
Sure. Well, see, that's my big question. Is it, when did that changeling get aboard the Titan? Have the changelings infiltrated to such a degree that they just have one aboard every major ship?
That'd be a lot of changelings.
Did one somehow get aboard during their skirmish with Werq? Or did they have one hiding out aboard the Helios or whatever that was? And that it snuck aboard the Titan when they got rescued by them? This is, I feel like, a very important question.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about, like, when did this changeling get here? Because that does change things.
And, like, why, if you're a changeling, if we're infiltrating Starfleet, why are you like this random ensign? Like, why is Captain Shaw not the changeling? Which we know he's not, because we saw him bleed all over the place.
Like, somebody points that out on Reddit. It's like, there's one guy we know isn't a changeling, and then someone else is like, Papa Cisco might disagree with you.
Yeah. So, nobody knows what this nebula right on the edge of Federation space is. I kind of mentioned that earlier.
Nope.
A little bit weird.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of unexplored stuff, even within Federation space, I feel like. So that doesn't necessarily stand out to me.
Okay. Yeah, we'll let it go, I guess. Although, if it turns out to be tied in somehow, that would be a huge coincidence.
Yes, that would be the biggest coincidence ever.
So, I'm assuming it's going to turn out to be like some kind of callback.
Everything seems to be some kind of callback. So
right. This is a very Easter egg heavy season. Lots of callbacks, lots of references.
I mean, the show in general is very much like, just from the concept on, it's very much like, hey, remember old Star Trek that was actually good and you enjoyed? Well,
yeah.
We remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yeah. Have the I was thinking like the whole plot with Jack and Picard is also kind of like Star Trek 2 with Kirk and
with
his
Kirk
son.
and David. Yeah. Which means that, like a Klingon is going to kill him or something.
Or, we'll update it a little bit. It'll be a changeling, and then Picard hates changelings or something. I don't know.
Or Picard already hates the Borg. Maybe they will get him.
And then we do a new Star Trek 6 where they have to make peace with the changelings, and Picard doesn't know how to feel about it. I don't know.
Although last season seems to how last season ended seems to imply that, like, the Borg are going to be friends now. So
right.
I guess they can't. Maybe the Locutus thing doesn't work as well.
They're not going to go around like terrorizing people and all that. It's like voluntary assimilation only. So that might be why they need to. Like, Locutus has an old command code that they can exploit and wrest control away from the nice Allison Pill Queen. Anyway, you got any other theories or points?
Not really. I mean, it was kind of a shame to see Shaw get sidelined so quickly in this episode when, I was just starting to think, maybe Shaw will be interesting. And it's like, nah, get him out of here. We got to have an excuse for Riker to be in charge now.
I'm sure he'll be patched up soon enough, so.
And then 7 of 9, doing 7 of 9 stuff. Now that Riker's in charge, maybe she can come and be first officer again. He already kicked Picard off the bridge.
Although they did specifically say, because it was after Riker had been put in charge.
Yeah.
But, like, there's a security officer by your door who specifically said, it's like, no, the order that you're under house arrest still stands.
Yeah, well, I assume that's because Riker didn't specifically countermand the order.
Okay, yeah.
Like he wasn't thinking like, oh, maybe I should let 7 of 9 out. He's busy. So
Sure.
if the current captain was like, hey, let that person out, I'm pretty sure they'd have to.
Okay, yeah, could be. I mean, it's a moot point because she pretty much is already out, and I think she was on the bridge by the end anyway. So
yeah. So we got Worf and Rafi working together, which that's nice. Hopefully, we'll see some interesting stuff.
I'm totally down for that.
They're going to go to the Daystrom Institute Annex or wherever this robbery took place, and
right.
Figure out what's going on there. I liked Picard and Riker at the beginning of the season and how they got to, be like buddies playing off of each other. I like it less now at the end of this episode where it's like, they never got the chance to just like really be mad at each other and disagree with each other violently on the bridge of a starship before. We need to get that in there. I don't think we needed it.
Yeah, it feels really artificial to me. But
yes, it did. It felt very artificial. Like that they're playing this up because we're no longer under Roddenberry's rule that like the main characters can't disagree. So we really need to get some of that disagreement in there.
Yeah. That's the thing about New Trek is it's like people are always just like yelling at each other often for no reason. It's like aboard these like Starfleet ships.
So we still don't have a handle, as we've discussed at length, on what the story is of this season.
Right.
So once again, I can't really comment on like if I feel like the season story is good because I still don't know what it is. We're 3 episodes in. We're like a third of the way through the season, and we still have no idea what's going on or why any of this is happening.
Yeah.
So,
Although if these changelings just turn out to be the final bad guy, and the whole rest of the season is just like a secret invasion type storyline or whatever, I'm down. I'm okay with it. I'm down with it.
That feels like I know I'd be okay with that story. That feels like a bigger story than what we're getting, because what we're getting so far is a very small story about we want to grab Jack Crusher, and also there was this robbery. Like
right.
These and I assume that it all has bigger ramifications.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, because the guy said basically the whole Federation is going to crumble or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's some kind of stakes going on.
But having like a Federation-wide secret invasion story seems like it would need more time and be a bigger story than what we've gotten so far. Like we need like 5 more concurrent storylines where Geordi's up to something and stuff's going on there and whatever else. Yeah. But we're getting these 2 storylines, and I don't feel like that's what. But I don't know. Yeah. We have no idea. So
yeah, I guess we'll see. Still, like I'm happy to see some like Deep Space Nine stuff get pulled in. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to finally see some Deep Space Nine coming in. I don't know why it is that these shows have loved Voyager, because like 7 of 9 and Voyager get a lot of attention.
Right.
And Deep Space Nine has gotten like no mentions.
Right.
And I don't like Voyager nearly as much as Deep Space Nine, so I don't get it.
Yeah, it's just like, I guess 7 of 9 is like a beloved character, so...
Yeah.
We have to use her as much as possible.
At least we're not getting, tons of Jonathan Archer references or something. It's
like, we have found a capsule with a frozen guy inside, or a transporter beam in a continuous loop. It's Captain Archer. I assume Captain Archer didn't die in Enterprise. I never made.
No, I don't think so, because at the end, I remember that at the very end, it was like a Riker and Troy were watching this on a holodeck. I don't think Archer dies. But I like someone on Reddit calls out my prediction from like the first episode or second or whatever, where I was like, I hope we're going to see Chief O'Brien. And somebody's like, yeah, I bet we're going to get like a Chief O'Brien appearance. Imagine Worf just like showing up at his door and like ringing the door. And Keiko opens it and is like, nope, closed door in face.
That would be great.
And then somebody else comments, like, or it could be like a 33-year-old Molly O'Brien who's pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh, she would be like, an adult now. That's so weird.
I would totally be down for an adult Molly O'Brien. I think it would be really great if this just slowly turned into a Deep Space Nine reunion.
Yeah.
And then, like, the next-gen characters we were promised, it's like that scene with Troy is the only one we get. And like we get like 2 minutes with Geordi and then we never see him again. But then suddenly it's like all the Deep Space Nine gang is back together. And then Picard is barely involved. They're like, don't worry, we'll handle this.
Yeah,
we're the changeling experts.
Kira's like, I know way more about changelings than you. Although we don't know what Picard was doing during the Dominion War. Presumably the Enterprise was involved.
Right. Apparently, like, because for some reason I was reading like the Memory Alpha about Star Trek Insurrection.
Yeah.
And apparently that takes place during the Dominion War. So
yeah, there's a line in there about like some sort of peace talks or something that you can tell that it's at least after the beginning of the Dominion War, if not after the end.
Mm. So, and of course, there's all the like books and stuff that say what they were doing, but those are books. We don't have to stick with them.
Right, yeah, the books. I just Googled what was Picard doing during the Dominion War, and the first thing that pops up is Picard and crew were tasked with recruiting the Gorn species to their side during the conflict.
Ooh, nice.
I want to see that.
Hey, you guys want to help us, like, come fight the Dominion? It's like, yes. I've never actually seen that episode with the Gorn, but...
Yeah, I haven't either. I've seen, the clips of Kirk fighting the Gorn, right. So that's all you really need.
Like, basically the point is, like, Kirk won't kill the Gorn, right? So
yeah, I think so.
Even though he's, like, a super evil seeming, like, what about the, man, there's so many species, like, the Shellyak or whatever.
Oh yeah, the Shellyak. Okay, hold on.
Did they get involved in the war?
No, I don't think that there's any. I like this post. It's like, so what were the Talarians and the Guardian of Forever doing? I mean, the Guardian of Forever sits on a planet. I don't know that it's. Apparently, the Tholians were neutral during the Dominion War.
Ugh, pick a side, guys. Come on. It's like they were doing all the banking for the Dominion.
Could be.
It's like if you're in the Alpha Quadrant, you need to get in on this.
Yeah, you should be on the side of the Alpha Quadrant. Jeez.
Oh. Okay, well, about ready to wrap up?
Yeah, I guess
long.
so.
Okay.
So yeah. Any final thoughts on episode 3, 17 seconds? The least inspired title so far, I feel like, this season.
I mean, at least it's not like our complaint with the Deep Space Nine titles, where it's
really,
like,
they don't make any sense at all. Yeah.
It's like, where did you pull that title from?
Yeah.
Yeah, really on the nose title, and I felt that emotional beat just did not. It was like, because the whole thing is like suddenly Picard is supposed to feel like he suddenly feels those fatherhood emotions when he might lose his son or something. But I was like, I felt like it was a little too blunt, but overall, I think I'm getting more positive on the season.
Okay.
If we're gonna have like changeling stuff, it just makes you feel like you never know. I don't want to be like one of those guys like, oh, I know that, but it's like, I'll indulge in it a little bit. It's like it's like X-Wings.
I can admit that I was not expecting the changelings to pop up. So that it is kind of a welcome, like, oh, this is going some directions that I had not foreseen. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah, it totally came out of left field, and I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's do some changeling stuff. It's been a while. So, anyway. So, you have any wrap-up thoughts other than what you've already said?
No, I think I got it.
Okay. So, I guess we'll call it there. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Remember, you can also check out our Deep Space Nine podcast, Undeclared Bajor. Also, you can check out the description where I occasionally put links to interesting things. I'm Fletcher, about to say goodbye as Data.
Adios.
And until next time, do not seek anger, do not seek blame. Do you have a resistance line you want to use?
Resistance... No, I don't.
Alright. Resistance is... The resistance bit is over.
Yeah, exactly. I was honestly Googling it before we started, and I was just like, I can't find anything good. Forget it.
So long. We'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.